Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. So huge news, you probably heard Katie Sackhoff from Battlestar Galactica and a whole bunch of other stuff is going to be playing a huge comic book character on The Flash this season. And because it's been a little while since I've done a Flash video, there's a new round of the Flash Ring giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. They confirm she's coming to episode 5, the first half of the season, maybe coming back during the second half, but it's also going to be an Arrow crossover episode, so it's actually like really big, so it makes sense that they would get a really big guest actress to play a really big character. They teased that there would be some Iris West Bachelorette stuff happening, so we don't know how Barry is going to be involved with the episode. We really only know a couple pieces, so it's going to be a lot of big stuff happening, but it does imply that Barry and Iris will have some sort of wedding before the end of the season, but that kind of feels like something they would push to the finale. She had posted this picture to social media a week ago like, oh, excited for my next project, I need to start getting ready, but she'd blacked out some of the information, so unless you zoomed in, you couldn't really tell what was going on, but there was a Flash logo at the top with the lightning bolt, so people were like, holy crap, she's coming to the Flash, this is going to be awesome. So because she's a pretty notable actress, there was a big question about who she was going to play, because it would have had to have been a pretty big character. Then just this week, they confirmed that she was going to be playing Blacksmith, and if you don't know who that character is, she actually appears during a big Thinker arc in the comics that starts with something called Crossfire. Earlier this year, when they dropped that the Thinker was going to be coming to the Flash eventually, I did a video sort of explaining his big Wally West arc in the comics. Really like the biggest story that he's ever had in the Flash comics was done by Geoff Johns while Wally West was still the main version of the Flash before Barry Allen came back during Rebirth. So when I talk about the Thinker arc that winds up turning into a Matrix movie type story, that's part of the larger arc that Blacksmith pops up during, but she's one of the newer rogues. She's sort of in charge of this underground black market rogue network called The Network. I know, very imaginative, but you have to imagine that there are tons and tons of Flash rogues. They have all kinds of backroom dealings, they trade in stolen goods, there has to be a market for that, so it's relatively mid-Wally West run. So the Crossfire story, as the name implies, puts Wally West in this big crossroads where he has Central City and Keystone City across the bay from each other. The Thinker starts to take over Keystone City with this technovirus of his, and then the new rogues led by Blacksmith and a couple other people start to take over Central City. So Wally West has this big choice to make. Do I try and save Central City or do I start to save Keystone City? Because he can't do both at the same time. Because during this run, there's only one version of the Flash available, so he's only one person. It's not like he has a whole big gallery of Flash family to help him out. But at the culmination of that story, after he's able to save both cities, he builds that big bridge from Keystone City to Central City, sort of uniting them. So that was before Barry Allen ever came back. So of course it makes sense that if Katie Sackhoff is going to be playing a really big comic book villain, a rogue, that it be one that's tied to the big villain of Flash Season 4, the Thinker. So it sounds like they had their big list of rogues, like, okay, the Thinker's going to be our big villain this season. Which other rogues popped up during that run, and which of them are big enough to merit her? Because she's not going to play some small one-off character. But her powers are actually really freaking cool. So she can genetically manipulate things, she's a technopath, and she's a genius with crazy amounts of money. So for instance, you see this image here of her in her full comic book costume. She forms this from metal and technology around her. So in the way that Cyborg can control technology remotely and interface with things, she can do that too. So she's a badass in her own right and a bit of a team leader. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mirror Master was the leader of the Rogues last season. I wouldn't be surprised if she becomes the new leader of whatever new Rogues team happens during this season. But the team that she forms is actually Mirror Master, Weather Wizard, Trickster, Magenta, Girder, Plunder, and Murmur. We actually met a couple of those newer rogues last season, so Weather Wizard has still been around. He's sort of floating off in the wind. He could always come back. Same thing for Trickster. I think Mark Hamill will probably always be the main version of Trickster on the Flash TV show, and because of his Star Wars filming schedule, he tends to be a one-off thing, so I don't think that Trickster is going to be part of this new rogues team. Magenta, we met last season. Girder hasn't been around in a while. He was the one that wound up being the undead zombie during season 2, so we'll see what they do with him. I'm not expecting him to come back. But Murmur, you may remember from Arrow seasons 3 and 4, so I don't think that he's going to be back either. He has a pretty freaky story, and I think they're trying to go with more of a season 1 vibe. So actually a really good thing to do just to get a sense for the feel of season 4 is to go back and rewatch some of your favorite season 1 episodes, because they said that they're kind of going back to season 1. The same way that Arrow kind of went back to Arrow season 1 during season 5. Almost like the writers on both the shows are like, oh, we got a little off base before, we're going to try and recapture some of that magic that we started out with some really cool new characters, including Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica. The really cool thing about this new team of rogues led by Blacksmith is that they have almost nothing to do with what the Thinker's plans are. The Thinker has his own ideas for what he wants to do. He wants to expand his consciousness. The Flash is a big part of that. The fastest man alive against the fastest mind alive. So I don't think we're going to see any Blacksmith versus Thinker episodes. We had that episode where Captain Cold was fighting with Mirror Master. It was sort of like a rogue war. They might have a couple moments like that this season, because even though Katee Sackhoff is only announced for this one episode the first half of the season, I'm really hoping she returns in the back half of the season, because she sounds like she's going to be a big enough character that she'll escape the Flash and just continue to do whatever else in the background. You always have to imagine that characters like Gorilla Grodd, characters that are so big that you're not going to be able to contain them, they're too dangerous. You just have to chase them out of town with their tail between their legs until they can build their resources and come back in full force. Speaking of which, we've talked about it before, but Gorilla Grodd is actually going to be one of the big villains on Legends of Tomorrow Season 3. They did not say what the name of the big evil team-up is going to be, but Mark Guggenheim was teasing that he does have a name in mind, so it could be Secret Society, it could be Injustice Society. We'll find out more about that as we get closer to the premiere. And even though they haven't been talking about it a lot recently, Titans is still getting ready to shoot its first episode in September. I think it's September, October, really soon. They haven't announced who's playing Nightwing. They've really only said who their Raven is. Like, that's all we know. She's going to be young. Beast Boy will be young. Starfire and Nightwing are going to be the older characters. They'll be like Oliver Queen age, like late 20s, early 30s. So just be prepared for some information about Titans to drop really soon. There'll be some new trailers for Flash, Arrow, all the rest of the DC shows pretty soon too. They're still cooking along on the big crossover episode. I did a video about that last week. What'll happen is I'll name the giveaway winner when I post my next DC video. There's a bunch of comic book stuff happening, but there's also the Game of Thrones finale and Rick and Morty happening right now. So if you're not sure which videos I'm posting, just go to my videos tab. That's like the best way to see what the last week of videos has been. Once we get through Game of Thrones, there'll be a little bit more comic book stuff happening, so I'm going to do some more Defenders, more DC stuff later this week. While you wait for everything, you can click here to learn more about that Thinker arc from the comics, and you can click here for the trailer for the Game of Thrones finale. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.